Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are zeroing in on a world-famous city to answer a really fascinating, kind of wild question. How do you actually survive in Las Vegas? But listen, we aren't talking about the neon lights, the booming entertainment, or surviving that endless desert sun. No, there is a massive, dark, and deeply mysterious reality existing right beneath the feet of millions of tourists. Today, we're going to uncover a hidden side of this desert paradise that almost no one on the surface ever sees. Okay, let's dive into this. Because when we ask what it takes to survive in Las Vegas, we really aren't talking about beating the house at the blackjack table or pacing yourself at a buffet. We are talking about literal, physical survival in a completely unforgiving environment. We're going to explore a hidden society that is adapted to an entirely different set of rules just to see the next day. The juxtaposition here is just absolutely staggering. Think about it. Up on the surface level, you have this Nevada casino industry pulling in over $15 billion a year, right? It's a world built entirely on glittering illusion, massive luxury, and total decadence. But literally 7 floors down, there is a completely different reality. We're talking about pitch black storm drains where the ground is this toxic mix of sewage, trash, and human waste. The sheer contrast between the immense wealth right above ground and the incredibly harsh, dangerous conditions right below it, it totally shifts your perspective. And the scale of this underground world, it's vast. 200, that is a number of miles of labyrinthine tunnel networks running directly underneath the city of Las Vegas. And these tunnels, they weren't built for people. They were constructed to direct water under the city, to prevent the streets from flooding. But this sprawling concrete maze has inadvertently become a secret, hidden world, which brings us to an even crazier number, 1,500. That is the estimated population of the so-called mole people, who call this pitch black 200-mile maze their home. It's practically a massive underground city. These are people who, for a wide variety of reasons, exist entirely off the grid. Some have lived down there for a decade. Some were actually even born into this dark world. And navigating this network is a literal daily battle. Section 1. Surviving the deadly floods.
So how exactly do you survive this environment? Well, the first major challenge isn't even what you might expect. It's the environment itself. The mechanics of this are just incredible to unpack. See, because the ground in Las Vegas is extremely hard, rainwater just can't soak into the soil. So a rainstorm could hit the mountains 15 miles away, meaning it could literally be a perfectly sunny day in the city, but that raging water funnels straight into the city drains. Suddenly, those tunnels fill with devastating speed. Imagine sitting in your makeshift home and with almost zero warning other than this echoing sound of approaching water, a lethal torrent comes rushing through.
So the crucial point here is the sheer speed of this danger. The water in these tunnels can reach 8 feet high in just 10 to 20 minutes. 10 to 20 minutes! The residents have practically no time to escape, and that's assuming the current or all the floating debris doesn't trap them inside first. There's no early warning system down there. Every single time it rains, it becomes an immediate, chaotic race for their lives. There's this quote from one of the longtime tunnel residents that really brings this tragic reality into focus. They said, "There used to be signs down here that said the current never lose," which is very true. The current never loses. Every sudden flood brings a massive risk of drowning. It washes away whatever meager belongings they've managed to scrape together, it destroys their makeshift homes, and tragically, it frequently takes lives. It's essentially a devastating reset button that hits without warning.
Section 2. Underground daily survival tactics.
But, the floods are just the environmental threat. When the water finally recedes, these folks have to figure out how to live in an environment that entirely lacks plumbing, light, or basic infrastructure. Imagine having to navigate a pitch-black maze entirely by memory, just dragging a hand along the wall so you don't get lost. To cook, they forge pans out of scavenged aluminum and literally use highly flammable hand sanitizer as a heat source. They have to sleep on raised makeshift beds just to avoid the damp, toxic ground. Getting drinking water means sneaking up to street-level fire hydrants. And bathroom facilities? Those are nothing more than 5-gallon buckets lined with trash bags. It is a grueling, daily, mechanical routine just to exist.
And this is where the surface world and the underground world collide in a really fascinating way. The tunnel economy relies incredibly heavily on what they call dumpstering. Because tourists above ground are often drinking in the sun and gambling away thousands, their excess literally becomes underground survival gear. Get this, a tourist might buy a $3,000 Louis Vuitton bag, win big on a slot machine, and just abandon their expensive purchase in the excitement. The tunnel residents actively scavenge this unbelievable excess straight from the trash to survive. It's an entire economy fueled by the surface city's waste.
Section 3. Navigating Human Threats and the Mind. Beyond scraping together physical resources, you have to remember this is a completely unpoliced zone. Like, police radios literally do not work down there. Because of that, residents face constant, terrifying threats from each other. We're talking territory disputes, rampant theft, and incredibly tense encounters with individuals armed with machetes or guns. Arson is a very real threat too. One resident actually had his cat severely burned because someone started a fire in the cramped space out of pure malice. And the threat of drugs? It's ever present. Carrying Narcan to reverse sudden overdoses is just a completely standard part of navigating these tunnels. You constantly have to watch your back.
And this brilliantly illustrates the mental weight of this environment. It is absolutely profound. One resident described it like this: darkness is not just the absence of light. It's like an entity that covers you and erases you from the world. Sensory deprivation is a very real, very dangerous thing. When you spend years living in a damp, echoing, pitch-black labyrinth, that kind of isolation does terrible things to human psychology. It's not just scary, it actively breaks down your sense of reality.
Prolonged exposure to this environment actually alters human behavior. Residents regularly report extreme trauma and intense paranoia. They talk about the situation being haunting, seeing demons, or, a 6'5" shadowy figure with a pointed nose and no limbs just sliding through the pitch black. They hear phantom footsteps right outside their tents. They hear entities mimicking familiar voices, calling their names down the tunnel. The psychological burden of surviving the total absence of light is honestly just as harrowing as the physical threats.
Section 4. The Impossible Escape.
Now, with all of this horror, a natural question comes up: why don't they just leave? Let's move to and see how this builds, because it is a devastating, systemic downward spiral. It often starts simply enough with losing financial stability, being just 2 paychecks away from losing your housing. So you retreat to the tunnels to survive, but then a sudden flood washes through, taking all your belongings and, most importantly, your identification cards. Well, without an ID, you officially don't exist in the system anymore. You literally cannot apply for a job, you can't rent a place, and you cannot access social services. You become completely trapped off the grid.
But actually, the trap isn't just bureaucratic. Even if someone were to walk down there and hand out new IDs to all 1,500 residents today, a social worker noted they would still be down there tomorrow. Why? Because you cannot easily undo the incredibly complex web of profound trauma, severe mental health issues, and substance abuse that stems from living in a constant, grinding state of survival. Once the tunnels pull you in, the deep psychological scars make returning to surface society incredibly, incredibly difficult.
So, what does this all mean? We walk over these streets completely captivated by the neon lights and the luxury. But what is the true cost of Las Vegas's extravagance when its literal foundations house a forgotten society, fighting an endless, desperate battle for survival in the dark? It completely reframes how we view this iconic city, and it highlights a deeply tragic societal blind spot right beneath our feet. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this gives you a completely new perspective to consider next time you think of Vegas.